Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this first trading day of the new year. And for that, I'm pleased to have here in the studio Dr. Kim Seiwan, Professor of Economics at Ewha Womans University. Dr. Kim, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, too.
So the Korean economy in 2019 was held back by several factors, weak demand for semiconductors, the various trade conflicts, including the one with Japan. Now, all these factors are still in play somewhat as we enter the new year. What should we be watching for in 2020?
I think in 2020's global economy, the most important issue will be U.S. presidential election. If Mr. Trump is reelected, he will intensify protective trade policies. So that is going to be decreasing global trade, and also that has negative impact on Korean economy. And if Democratic Party's candidate is elected, we can have opposite situation. From inside of the Korean economy, whether domestic investment and exports are both recovered is a really important issue. If we can't revive these two factors, it is very hard to have a higher economic growth. Also, geopolitical issue of North Korea's missile test and atomic bomb test will be negatively affecting Korean economy in 2020.
Right. Well, one of those issues, the trade deal with the U.S. and China, President Trump says that's going to be signed on the 15th of this month. This, of course, has gone on for 2 years, and it's affected both countries' economies. What is the signing of this deal going to do?
Actually, the completion of Phase 1 deal between U.S. and China is a really good news to global economy, including Korea. If that was not completed yet, that should be giving such a huge negative impact on Korean economy. But Phase 1 deal is not the end of the negotiation between the two countries. There is a long way to go until the final deal between the two countries, like Beijing's enactment of the total ban on government's support on private firms and technology theft.
Right, and the other issue, in Korea here, we saw exports down for the first time since the financial crisis 10 years ago, down by double digits, 10.3%, I believe the figure is. What happened there, and can we look for an improvement in the year to come?
Well, the fundamental first reason for decreased export of Korea is declined global trade due to U.S. and China trade war and slow economies in major center of the economy in Europe and Brazil and Japan. So we expect that this situation will be continued for the rest of the 2020. Secondly, Korean companies' international competitiveness has been pretty much weakened these days. We say that U.S. companies are running far ahead of us and Chinese firms are almost catching us. So we are kind of under squeezed situation between developed countries and developing countries. So that situation is also going on for 2020. But there is a big hope of recoveries of global chip market and automobile market and petrochemical market. So we can have a big hope for the recoveries of the Korean export for this year.
Right. Well, now turning to stocks, U.S. Wall Street had a pretty amazing year. I mean, a year ago, right now, we were coming off of a pretty big correction. And then, to everybody's amazement, we saw stocks up just about 30% by the end of the year. How long can it go on? People were thinking, can it go on into the new year?
Well, that is a really tough question, but economics does not provide accurate explanation on stock forecast. But if I do it rationally, as you said, last year's U.S. stock market was really great, maybe the greatest year in 21st century. And they had over 30% returns on annual basis in over all three major indexes of the United States. And of course, the major companies of the United States, like Microsoft and Google, had a return over 60% in a single year in the last year. So that was really amazing. And this kind of great companies, great performance will be continued this year, 2020. However, we can expect that there will be another interest rate cut by U.S. Federal Reserve for this year, like that of the 3 times interest rate cut in 2019. So even though U.S. stock market is increasing for this year, we can't have that great year of the last year. So market's average is, I think, is around 10% of the return for U.S. stock market for this year.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that, seeing how that plays out. But in Korea, we saw this year performance was not nearly as good as that and lagged behind not only the U.S., but several other markets in the region here. How are Korean markets doing, though, here on the first day of the year?
Well, as you said, last year's Korean stock market return was 7.7% based on Kospi. Even other 20 major stock markets, average return was over 21%. And this year, Korean stock market has started with a great hope. But unfortunately, the market is kind of mixed between Kosdaq market and Kospi market. Kospi market lost by 1%, but Kosdaq market gained over 0.6%. And in today's stock market, institutional investor, domestic institutional investors and foreign investors were net sellers. On the other side, net buyers were domestic individual investors.
Yeah, there's a lot of hope. People saying the Kospi is undervalued.
Right.
By quite a bit. But Dr. Kim, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.